Today I want to consider the question, Kantian ethic of duty is superior to the utilitarian ethic of happiness in dealing with difficult business decisions. Discuss. And this essay clearly sets up a contrast between a Kantian ethic of duty and respect based on what I call hard rules or categoricals. That's rules that cannot be broken, and the consequentialist ethic of the utilitarians, which focuses on the greatest happiness principle as the one fundamental good. A difficult business decision implies, does it not, a conflict and some kind of choice. For example, whether to dispose of waste products cheaply and so boost profits, or whether to shift production to a low-wage economy such as Bangladesh. In our introduction, we need to decide which theory we prefer and why, and then turn it into a thesis statement such as Kantian ethics is preferable because it avoids the needs to assess consequences by arguing for rules or categoricals either expressed as negatives, such as do not lie, or as positives, always respect your workforce. This is simpler than utilitarianism and leads to greater consistency. However, it might be argued that the categoricals make Kantian ethics unworkable and inflexible in practice, and that is something we need to consider in our essay. Kantian ethics can be simply explained in terms of two formulae, the formula of law and the formula of ends. Worth learning them. The formula of law states, so act that the maxim, that's the general principle, of your action can be willed as a universal law for the whole of humankind. And the formula of ends states, never treat people simply as a means to an end, but always also as an end in themselves. And that end in themselves means with the kind of dignity and respect for their welfare that we would expect other people to apply to us. And if this is applied to the decision in 2006 by Trafigura executives to dump toxic waste in the Ivory Coast, we can see that that decision violates both principles. We can't universalize it, because if we do, we'd want to harm ourselves and dump toxic waste in our own backyards. And nor does it treat the citizens of the Ivory Coast with a sort of dignity and respect that we would want people to apply to us. So, utilitarianism can be explained with reference to the greatest happiness principle, and this is the maximizing of net happiness, that is, happiness minus misery or pleasure minus pain. The difficulty here lies in two directions. First, we do not know the consequences of our actions, so the executives in 2006 of Trafigura did not know that the toxic waste would end up harming so many people in the environment of the Ivory Coast. How could they know? They were simply wrong in their calculation, whether intentionally or unintentionally, probably, almost certainly, unintentionally wrong. Secondly, it may be possible to argue pragmatically that the happiness of Trafigura shareholders, that's one element of the stakeholder list, remember, stakeholders being wider than shareholders or employees, that the happiness of these Trafigura shareholders in boosting their profits by a cheap way of waste disposal, in sum is greater than the misery that's likely to be caused to Ivory Coast citizens. In other words, we can sacrifice a minority of citizens to the interests of the happiness of the rich Western shareholders. And many would view that as immoral. A Kantian would never make such a calculation. Bernard Williams, the philosopher, is one who supports this kind of criticism. If you remember, he gives the example of Jim and the Indians, where an invited honoured guest is asked to shoot one Indian in order to save 19. And Williams argues this violates Jim's moral integrity because it's something that many of us, and he cites Jim as an example of such a person, could not think of doing. such as killing an innocent person in cold blood. To do so makes us cold, inhumane, and pragmatic. So by dumping toxic waste on the Ivory Coast, Trafigura executives might be accused of being just that, cold, pragmatic, and lacking in moral integrity, that the kind of ethics of Kant places central to our thinking. So therefore, it could be argued that utilitarianism encourages immoral outcomes. In our conclusion, we might restate our thesis statement that Kantian ethics is superior and perhaps hint at a problem, that Kantian ethics isn't very good at managing a conflict between moral goods, such as the need to tell the truth when being invited to lie to save the reputation of a company, and the serious effect on company profitability if we tell the truth and the truth is very harmful. So you have a conflict there between two moral goods. It might be argued that an element of deception is often good for business. That's a pragmatic, perhaps a more utilitarian argument, as long as the bad publicity can be suppressed. But even if it's true, is that a good argument for acting like that? Is Kantian ethics actually too unworkable and inflexible in practice? That's a key issue we must consider in this essay, even if we're ultimately going to support Immanuel Kant